A warm welcome from sunny Vienna today to our fourth open day with today's motto, Austria, where innovation moves mountains. My name is Marion Bieber. I'm the Managing Director of Invest in Austria at ABA, and I will guide you through this morning session. Today we have two focus topics: life sciences, one of the most important sectors here in Austria, and especially with a special focus on precision medicine, where a new R&D center will be opened and the Austrian government will be investing 75 million euros. And in our second panel, we will have a focus on the topic of autonomous systems, where Austria can also offer you very attractive R&D conditions and interesting companies for collaboration. I would also like to invite you to put your questions directly in the platform into Slido, and all of the panelists today will be happy to answer your questions. In this first session, the first 30 minutes, together with my other two speakers, Elvira Keinersdorfer from LISA Austria, from Life Sciences Austria, and Clemens Wasner from AI Austria, we would like to give you a first overview about Austria, your innovative hub in the heart of Europe. So let's start. What do you know about Austria? Usually when I talk to international companies, they usually know the Sacher cake, the famous chocolate cake from Vienna. And yes, every year the Hotel Sacher produces 360,000 cakes here. But do you also know that Red Bull, the famous energy drink, is from Austria, and its headquarters is in a very small city close to Salzburg with just 1,500 inhabitants. Yeah, Austria is famous for skiing, and most of us really like it. We have more than 7,000 kilometers of ski slopes. But there is also, for example, the Chinese company Ehang, which is developing vertical helicopters, air taxis, together with FACC here in Austria. Guess the contribution that the industry sector, the production sector, has here in Austria to the GDP. Usually Austria is known as a tourism hub, but Austria is still a productive location. 29% of our GDP comes from industry production. And at the same time, Austria over the last years has increased very impressively its percentage of R&D spendings. And today we have a quota of R&D spending of 3.23%, which puts us at the second place in Europe, just behind Sweden. I would like to give you some more facts and figures which I hope that you didn't know until now. For example, and today then we will have a representative of the Medical University here in Vienna. Did you know that the clinical hospital here in Vienna, the AKH, is the fourth largest in the world? And at the same time, here in Vienna, 10% of all plasma therapeutics worldwide are produced here. Another example that I would like to give you from our flourishing life science sector is Boehringer Ingelheim, who just some weeks ago opened its new production plant for biopharmaceuticals. They invested more than 700 million here in its life science location. Let's also have a look on another company on our second focus topic, autonomous systems. TTTech, which is an interesting Austrian company. It was established as a spin-off of the Technical University of Vienna, and also today has, for example, Samsung as one of its main investors, and Samsung invested more than 75 million euros in TTTech, and today TTTech is one of the leaders in the topic of dependable data communication. Why do many international companies choose Austria as their location in the heart of Europe? In discussing with the companies, we as ABA were able to identify 5 different topics. One of the most important ones is the market and the market access that you gain here in Austria. Let's just have a short look Austria at a glance. Of course, we are quite a small country with about 9 million inhabitants, but we are also a very rich country. We have a GDP of nearly 40,000 euro per capita, so you really find a strong purchasing power here in the heart of Europe. And Austria offers you the ideal access to all European markets, being really in the heart of Europe. And within 3 hours of flying time, you can reach more than 700 million customers. The second point why international companies chose Austria as their hub is security and stability. Austria is a very secure country and with a very stable legislation and social framework. Let's just give me another example. So for Austria just has 2 days of strikes per 1,000 employees, whereas the average in Europe is 49 days. And of course, you will find a very high quality of living here. In all the different statistics, Austria is among the top 3 countries worldwide regarding quality of life. The third topic, why companies come to Austria, is the talent and the mindset that you find here. The productivity here in Austria is 16% above EU average, and you will find motivated people with a very, let's say, flexible labor law. The fourth point is innovation and the innovation ecosystem that you find here. And we have a very attractive scheme for R&D incentives, especially with the cash grant of 14%, which is applicable, for example, on the costs of staff or the material that you use in the R&D research. The last topic that I want to briefly discuss today is the support that we as ABA offer. We have 3 different departments, and today I'm representing Invest in Austria, which is servicing international companies that evaluate Austria as their business location. How can we assist you? We offer assistance over the whole process of locating here, from first contacts, first meetings, as you may do it today, with tailor-made information regarding basic information about your sector in Austria, market data, framework conditions, or also organizing fact-finding tours for you here in Austria. We will also provide you with the costs, for example, for your business plan, if you want to know how much does the workforce cost here, or how much will the office space cost. We will assist you together with the regional colleagues in finding the right location for you and guide you also through the process for applying for permits and subsidies. And even after you have founded your company, we will always be your first point of contact to answer all your possible questions. So please feel free to contact you in any case you have a question about the business location, Austria. Thank you. Yes, the Austrian Funding Bank. She is responsible for Life Sciences Austria here at AWS, and the Austrian Funding Bank, which includes also pre-seed and seed financing, as well as the umbrella band Life Sciences Austria. She has a background in technical chemistry and worked in several big medical device companies before joining AWS 15 years ago. Elvira, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marion, for inviting me today for this speech. I'm very honored to have the opportunity to talk to you today on the life science sector in Austria. As we have already heard, Austria is a very attractive location, and especially the life science field is quite a big one. It's not so well known, and so I would like to give you some small introduction into some figures and what is the main topics we are active in. So in Austria we have about 1,000 companies active in life science business, and it's growing every year. So we have seen for the last 20 years it's steadily growing, and now we have 982 companies. About 60,000 people are working in this field, which is really a big amount. And we have here revenues from about 25 billion euros every year. And just to compare it to the GDP, it's about 7% of the GDP in Austria. So it's really a big amount. So I don't want to bore you with too many numbers. It's just to give you a small overview about the life science sector regarding the biotech and pharma sector and the medical devices. So you can see that we have about 405 companies active in the biotech and pharma sector, and in the medical device it's about 577. And of course we have also a lot of people working around, not only in the dedicated companies, but also with IT services, patent lawyers, consulting, building laboratories. So we have companies here that are active in the whole value chain of biotech, pharma and medical devices. So of course life science is a very big sector, and you have a lot of areas here. I just want to point out some of the main areas that the companies in Austria are active in. Of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but I just want to give you an insight. So the first one is therapeutics. We have a very strong focus on cancer. As already mentioned, we have a big production facility of Boehringer Ingelheim here in Austria, but not only the production, it's also the research center for cancer is located in Austria. And also Boehringer Ingelheim is financing their R&D facility IMP in Austria. And they are very strong connected also to the whole network of biotech companies. For example, they are offering office hours where startups or other companies can present their ideas or their project. They can get feedback, and it's not only restricted to the indications that Boehringer Ingelheim is in, but they are very open here. So for smaller companies, it's a very good opportunity to get in contact with the big ones. Of course, vaccines and infectious diseases is also a very interesting area, especially now in SARS-CoV pandemic. And we have a lot of companies active here in vaccines, for example, Valneva or Themis. And they have also got really big fundings for developing their R&D. The next one is medical technology. Also, we have here a very good mixture of big, very known companies like Otto Bock or Med-El in Innsbruck. And we have seen that in this area a big rise in digital health, artificial intelligence companies. Perhaps you know the My Sugar app, which is active in diabetes and has been sold to Roche. Or, for example, another one, it's an IB lab. They are analyzing radiology pictures and give the doctor a very intensive data analysis of the pictures. Next one, of course, is advanced diagnostics and analytics. Especially now in the COVID crisis, the analytic companies were very active. But it's not only restricted to COVID. We also have, for example, in allergy, a very interesting company that has developed a very new technology for a multi-array system of analyzing allergy. It's macro-array diagnostics. Of course, we are also active in production and platform technologies. Not only the big ones. Of course, they were already mentioned, Boehringer Ingelheim or Takeda, who is producing the plasma products here in Austria. Also, the smaller ones, we have also, for example, Mono. It's smaller company, is active in producing liquids, for example. Or not everybody knows Polymoon, but they are also involved in producing the mRNA vaccine from BioNTech. So you see that really have the hidden champions here. Of course, this is only possible because we have a very good academic education in Austria. We have 70 universities, 13 universities of applied science and 25 non-university research institutes, which are really renowned. You can see below some of the institutes. Of course, it's not exhaustive because then the slide would be full with all the R&D institutes. It's when you think that you have 77,000 students, you see that there is a very high potential workforce with well-educated people. So for coming to Austria, what are the opportunities for creating a company in Austria? We have a very strong network on the one side regarding the funding, and on the other side also regarding the support, the consulting. From this side, I think it's a very good opportunity because the networks here in Austria are very strong. Everybody knows each other, so we can give you the optimal support. Regarding the funding, we at Austria Wirtschaftsservice can support you with either loans, grants, equity. We have fund opportunities, and this can be combined with support from the FFG. They have supports. They also have loans and funds for R&D developments. Also, the regional funding agencies can be addressed, and there is a very good combination of these funds possible, so we can have a very good opportunity for you, and we can have a package for you to offer when you would like to come to Austria. Of course, it's not only R&D, sometimes it's just for having a daughter company for distribution. We can also help you in this way. We have, for example, for just a very quick look at the beginning, we have the Austrian Life Sciences Directory where all the companies active in life science are listed. You can see this online. You can search for keywords, and then you get a list of the companies you are searching for. Of course, it was already mentioned, Austria in the middle of Europe is an ideal headquarter option if you have something you would like to sell, for example, in the European Union. And of course, as you have seen, we have so many academic institutions. They are very open for the research partnerships, either in basic research or in applied sciences. For example, a lot of our companies and our startup companies very early have cooperation with research, and also the big companies are very active in this field. I just want to give you some examples of big deals that were made in Austria, so that you can see we are not such a big country, but we really can manage to get out big exits. So, for example, we have a company from Tyrol, Innsbruck, the Virate. They were sold to Boehringer Ingelheim. My Sugar was already mentioned. Themis has been bought by MSD. And, for example, to see that also companies from Germany are coming to us, we have the Cutanus. They came from Germany to us last year. They got funding here in Austria, and they already secured venture funding from Austrian venture fund. So this is a very good example of how this can work. Just for two small words on what AWS can do, because we already will discuss this later on. We just have for startups a very attractive funding of 200,000 euros for very early startups in the pre-formation phase, and later on 800,000 euros in a later development phase when it comes to formation and expansion of the company. We also support companies with the international marketing. We are going to fairs where we have a big booth and you can go with us there, that you have a very good representation. And for the competition side, we are also organizing a business plan competition for the very early phase, just to give people a first kick to found a company. As I have already mentioned the fairs, you can meet us also at the moment at the CPHI in Milan, and then in November at the Medica in Düsseldorf. So if you are there, come to our booth. If you have any questions, you find also my contact details, and I will be happy to answer your questions now, later on, or later on if you want to send me an email. Thank you very much.
And now I would like to pass on the word to Clemens Wasner. He is the CEO of Enlight AI, an Austrian AI startup, as well as founder and chairperson of AI Austria, an independent think tank to promote AI in Austria and ensure Austria's competitiveness in the field. Before starting his own company, he spent more than 10 years in Japan and China, from where he oversaw the Asia expansion as a partner in a management consulting firm. The next 10 minutes, he will give you an overview about AI here in Austria and be also guest in our afternoon session about autonomous systems. We choose AI as a topic today because we see that it's getting more important in all the different sectors. So starting from life sciences, from digital health, but also, for example, for clinical studies, going up to, of course, connecting cars and ensuring us maybe sometime in the future's autonomous driving. So Clemens, I would like now to pass on the floor to you.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction, Marion. My name is Clemens Wasner, and in the next 10 minutes I would like to give you a brief overview, or let's say, about the Austrian AI ecosystem. So this brings me to the first question. So how do you present an AI ecosystem? So we will start with companies and startups to look at growth and where are they located in Austria. Then hand over to research to give you an overview. As mentioned from the previous speakers, the research landscape is very strong in Austria, but here now with a deep dive on artificial intelligence. And last but not least, we will focus on the public sector, the national AI strategy, plus what is coming from the community side. So you could say top down and bottom up. Starting with companies and startups. So if we just take the pure startup view, this means companies which are less than 5 years old, received funding either via private investment or a government grant, and pursuing a scalable business model. We have around, let's say, 150 startups nowadays in Austria. As far as the location is concerned, roughly 50% are located in Vienna. This is where we stand now, but I think this is also pretty much in line with other cities where you have such a overly large capital, like for example London in the UK, or let's say Tokyo within Japan. What is interesting when it comes to the follow-up regions, you see two here marked with a darker shade of red. The one to the south is Styria, the other one to the left is Upper Austria. The interesting thing here is that both of these provinces are consistently ranked among the top regions within the OECD when it comes to R&D expenditures per capita, and you see here a direct correlation between R&D expenditures and AI startups in these regions. So you could say this, the flow from research to private industry works very well. Another interesting fact when it comes to female founders, Austria, I would say, is slightly above European average. So we're like slightly ahead of Germany and like slightly behind Israel. So this is, let's say, a positive outlier. When it comes to growth, what you see here is the growth rate from the last 5 years since we started to track this. During COVID times, of course, the growth rate has slowed, but it's important to point out that there was still growth. There was no startup attrition, as you have seen in many other markets. Attrition meaning, that startups go out of business. And what you see here with the dashed line, in 2021, there's a huge recovery, almost a spike, I would say, in new companies being funded in the AI space. So what's the business model, or on which type of areas are the Austrian AI startups focus? So starting with the left side, this is like the elephant in the room, is industry. What is meant with this classification? That more than half of the Austrian startups, they focus on to solve challenges within one specific industry, and they are not pursuing a horizontal business model where, for example, they provide underlying technology to different sectors. This is quite peculiar because in most other regions in Europe, I would say you have like, this circle is almost 24 times 25%. Austria has a very strong specialization when it comes to AI startups. The other sectors being AI tech stack, this means startups which provide the toolings or the APIs or software for other companies in that space. And enterprise function and enterprise intelligence means that they either focus, let's say, on making information within a corporation accessible, or that they focus on, let's say, logistics or controlling, like enterprise functions which you have across all domains and which are not domain specific. When it comes to the landscape itself, what we talked about now is the upper 2/3 of this chart. This is like this logo landscape that you definitely have seen from other countries as well. We will not go through every logo of this, but it's important to point out where are like the key area or the key strengths areas of Austria. And as mentioned before already, one of them is definitely in the field of life sciences. That's the left blue box you see. So MySugar was mentioned. You now have also companies already dealing with drug discovery, similar to what Google Brain or DeepMind is doing with AlphaFold. This is also happening here. Or another very prominent company is, on the one hand side, Scarlet Red, which is making skin cancer detection, or Context Flow, which is doing this for radiology, very successful in all of Europe. Other focus areas here are, of course, manufacturing. Standing in the DACH region, manufacturing is like a given. And last but not least, the upper box is enterprise. This is insofar interesting as many very large companies, like, for example, IBM, Microsoft, or even Crayon, coming from the Nordics, they choose Vienna or Austria as the basis for their AI operations within Middle and Central Europe. This is quite remarkable because it's basically a testament to the talent pool available, because this type of companies, they don't think in dozens of data scientists they want to hire, but we're here in the triple digits. If you want any further information, this is regularly updated, and the slides will also be provided afterwards. Coming to the second field, research. In research, I would like to differentiate between the public sector and the private side, starting with the public sector, or let's say publicly funded universities and research institutions. By far, the most famous one is the JKU Linz. Why is it the most famous one? Because of the person or the gentleman you see on the right-hand side, Mr. Sepp Hochreiter. I think for the people not in the AI space, he's probably not that well known, but he wrote a groundbreaking paper in the 90s. It's on LSTM. It's the basic foundation for AI-based translation systems and voice assistants. So he also wrote the most cited AI paper worldwide. So this is even more cited than Google and Facebook. And as a consequence, I would say around him, a very rich AI research ecosystem has developed in recent years. Most evidently with the Alice unit Linz. That's the second logo. What does Alice mean? Alice is like the excellence research network all across Europe. You have like University of Amsterdam inside, Max Planck Institute in Germany, and so on. And this is really a handful of institutions, and Austria has one of them, which is really with Hochreiter and his group pursuing cutting-edge research. On the public-private side, this is like a hybrid. There is additionally one specifically focused on autonomous system. It's the Institute of Advanced Research in AI. It's called IARAI. You might not know here, what you see here, what is written on the right side, but here is basically the consortium of Daimler, Volkswagen and BMW when it comes to autonomous driving and mobile mapping. So again, this is quite remarkable that these huge German conglomerates from the automotive sector choose Austria as the basis of operations for autonomous driving and mapping. Yeah, now you could say what I tell you is nice, but who knows if this is all true, you know, standing in Austria and so on. You also see this reflected in international studies like this one, for example, which was published 2.5 years ago by MMC Ventures from the United Kingdom. And they had a look when it comes now to startup foundations. How is the, let's say, how many startups in the AI space do you have per capita? And out of them, how many are really pursuing their own IP, so-called deep tech? And even here, Austria is consistently ranked in the top 5. Yeah, when it comes then to transportation and autonomous driving, which is also one of the topics for today, I think this is especially very interesting if you come from the automotive sector, either as a supplier or as a startup. Testing and being able to test on real-world conditions is always, it's very painful. You need to go through a homologation process, you need certifications and so on. In order to make this as easy approachable as possible, Austria had the Autonomous Driving Act a couple of years ago, and this act allows that consortia can, let's say, apply for autonomous test tracks, and you see here behind me a couple of them for passenger cars, for buses, and for commercial vehicles, in this case long-haul trucks. And in this consortia, you can always join. It's not like you need to go through everything from 0 to 100, but you can approach this consortia, let's say if you're a bus maker or a truck maker, and let's say to try to get inside. This is the far quicker and easier approach because it's basically a regulatory sandbox in all but the name. Yeah, speaking of the private side of the research, when we talk about research, yeah, this company you might not know, Mapillary. Like, I'm pretty sure you don't know it. It's a company based in Graz, in the south of Austria, and they do mobile mapping. You could think of it like Google Street View. You take pictures and videos, they stitch it together, and you can do search and so on, and also is this a building, a tree, and so on. Mapillary was bought by Facebook, so and as you know, Facebook, now called Meta, is now very strong going in the direction of augmented reality, especially also of indoor mapping and outdoor mapping. And the team doing this is located in the south of Austria. So it's a good trivia question. Next one, Snapchat. I think especially the younger ones of you will know. Snapchat is also going in the augmented reality space. And similar to Facebook, they also bought an Austrian company in the augmented reality space. And they do the image recognition here in Austria with a team. And last but not least, by far the most famous one is Amazon Prime, in this case Amazon Prime Air. The south of Austria is just one of like a dozen R&D locations globally of Amazon where they do research. What is done in Graz is the navigation of drones in the context of warehouses. So yeah, you know, we always talk for drones like package delivery, but here it's about the automation within the warehouse. This is again also done in Austria. So regarding the public sector and funding, I think to funding I don't need to use that many words because you heard it from the nice ladies before me already. So let's have this on a very top level when we talk about the national AI strategy. The two ladies you see here behind me are the ministers in charge of the strategy. One comes from digitalization and business, the other one from climate and infrastructure. And what is remarkable here is that the focus of the Austrian strategy is on the one hand side related to green AI, CO2 reduction, future mobility, which also means that you have very rich funding programs, especially focused on this. Additionally, you have calls on trustworthy and ethical AI, like the speaker just before me from the AWS. They had the first, Europe-wide, the first call related to trustworthy and ethical AI applications. And this is also attracting, I must say, quite some international startups to come here because in terms of funding, this is really moving where the puck will be. From a customer side, because many of you are from the industries, it's also worth pointing out that the public sector is also is used to work with startups, especially when it comes to emerging technologies. So I picked here an example for the city of Vienna. You have many regions which have their own digitalization or, let's say, AI strategy, and they're open for collaboration with externals. Means startups, could also mean, of course, EU-wide startups and research institutions. And this is true for Vienna, as you can see here at the example of road condition monitoring and mapping, but this is also true on a larger level for the national government when it comes to cybersecurity, intrusion detection, voice assistance, and so on. Last but not least, community. This is like the last aspect of the ecosystem. When it comes to community meetups, conferences, and so on, I think Austria is one of the most vibrant places in Europe. Yeah, I know perhaps I'm biased because I'm the founder of AI Austria, but how can I put numbers behind this? We started with a Europe-wide AI conference. It's called the Applied AI Conference. That's like the logo in the upper right corner. It basically started as a small regional event with a couple of hundred people coming to Vienna. After COVID, numbers completely exploded, and we are now hosting one of the largest B2B AI conferences in the world. So the numbers you see behind me is, I think, from a community perspective, this is like without equal. And we always partner here with let's say, our brother and sister organizations like Bulgaria, like Hub France IA, like the German AI Association, and so on. And so if you want to collaborate in Austria, this is very easy to pull off because we have this non-profit structure, and we're used to work with stakeholders from different levels, like from the private side, from the public side, from the research or other non-profits. So this brings me to the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, you can always shoot them on Slido or ask them later in the panel. And yeah, afterwards, just hit me on B2Match if you have any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
For this very interesting overview. I've got some questions from Slido, both regarding Elvira. Maybe you can join us here.
Of course.
So the first question is, can you tell me a bit more about venture capital in Austria? Probably it's a question for both of you from the practical side. So.
Of course. There are some venture capital companies active in Austria. For example, we have a very strong startup-focused venture capital company. It's the IstCube. It's connected to the Ist Institute, the research institute, and they are actively investing in startup companies in the life science area, also in an earlier phase. And also the AWS has available the AWS Founders Fund, where startup companies, when it comes to bringing the products to the market, can support early stage companies. Of course, there are also other VC funds active from Germany, but I think these are the main ones from Austria.
Okay, thank you. Clemens, would you like to add some remarks about venture capital here?
Yeah, I have to promote the Austria Business Agency. Yeah, there's one very important thing to point out. The AWS has a matching service for companies in their seed stage which are looking for founders and for funding. And the interesting thing is you have basically all the seed investors and early stage VCs inside. So the AWS is really actively helping you to find matches. We also constantly see this in my inbox. I think this is working. This is a very high uptake. Homegrown in Austria, you have the company Speed Invest. They are even on a European level one of the largest VCs. And the nice thing for if you are in Austria is 40% of their capital of their funds they need to deploy in Austria. So it pays off to have a location here because then you're like they have to do a double check on you anyway.
Okay, thank you, Clemens. Elvira, another question for you. How quickly after receiving AWS funding do you have to start a company here?
It depends. If you have these pre-seed early stage funding, you must apply as a person or as a project. You must not have the company founded yet. And then this project has about a duration of 1 to 2 years maximum. And within these 2 years, you have to found a company. When it comes to the other funding for the more late stage, the seed funding, there you can apply as not founded yet. But when you get a positive decision from our seed financing board for the contract, you need to have a company in Austria. So for this funding, the company has to be already founded. But we are very flexible here.
Okay. Thank you, Elvira. So of course, the presentations will be made available right after today on the platform for all of you. And I thank you for your attention. We will now change the setting and then move directly in our life science panel. Thank you.